Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Forza Horizon 3 speed build, and this time we're tuning up my personal favourite version of the BMW M3 lineup. This is the original M3, the E30 generation, and although this car isn't as quick, certainly nowhere near as quick in terms of top speed as the other newer M3s, it's not slow either. Definitely not, and up against its main rivals, which is stuff like the Mercedes 190e, and also by extension in a different form of homologation, be it rallying, you could take it up against stuff like the Audi Quattro as well, or the Lancia Delta, or the Sierra RS 500, or the Escort RS Cosworth. It comes from that kind of blistered arches, touring car or rally car homologated special. Now, as far as engine swaps go, I would recommend the 3.2 litre straight six conversion. As far as drivetrain, you know the drill, I would recommend all-wheel drive, but some people might not want that. Of course, that's down to personal preference. Aspiration, I would recommend the twin turbo. You do have a couple of visuals to work with. Of course, you've got the rims, but you've also got stuff like bumpers and wings. So again, that's down to you. If you like the way this car looks, then you can get this tune straight from my storefront by using the keywords down below. If, though, you'd rather do it yourself, then basically just fit everything that has racing in the title, except perhaps for the roll cage. You can fit it if you want to, but you don't necessarily need to for straight line speed. Now, it does improve handling, especially on older vehicles, and on some older vehicles, as I've mentioned before, it does also improve launch due to stiffening up the rigidity of the body. But for this particular car, and for newer ones as well, it's not always necessary. Now, as you can see from the benchmark, you're running good numbers: 2.8 to 60, 5.5 to 100, and 243 flat out. That's pretty good. That's a good all-round package, certainly very competitive against those other cars from the time. Cars like I mentioned earlier. Now, for the gearbox, I would recommend a final drive of 3.1, then individual gears, which will be pretty familiar to people who have used my tunes before. A 2.9 first gear ratio, then 2, 1.5, 1.17, 0.95 and 0.78. Alignment, we've got neutral, camber and toe, as you'd probably assume, and 4 degrees of caster. Now, if you want it to be stiffer, especially at higher speeds, you can raise that higher, and of course vice versa. If you want it to be a little bit more tail happy, especially at lower speeds, then you can lower that. As far as anti-roll, we've rounded those off to 33 and 21, springs on 172 and 166 with the lowest possible ride height. Dampers we've got on 15 and 7 respectively. Aero doesn't apply. And as far as the diff, I've got, as I usually do, 100% on acceleration, 0 on deceleration, and for this particular car I've opted for a 70% centre split. So you could go more towards the back if you want it to be a bit more tail happy to get more of a drift out of the car, but this is kind of a mix of both. You can still drift it, but it's good off-road, it launches well, and you still have that kind of control which you would want from a car doing over 240 miles per hour. So that's it for the tune, which, as I mentioned, is of course on my storefront, but now let's take it out on the road to see if it can actually hit that speed. Now, as I mentioned, of course, this car is nowhere near as quick as something like an E92 M3 or an M4, or even something like a 1M in a straight line, but slow it definitely isn't. Now, as you can see from this portion of the replay, or as you will see in a second, it's not quite as quick as the benchmark quotes. It could potentially get there with a bit of draft or on a long enough downhill, especially without the traffic mishaps, which you can see here, but it's more akin to speeds of the high 230s rather than the lower 240s. So it can comfortably get up around 240, but it takes a bit more effort, a bit more distance as well, and a bit of a bump or a draft to actually get that last few miles per hour out of it. And that's the case from some other vehicles as well. But overall, if you do decide to use this tune, it's certainly very competitive against its peers of the time, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it. But that's it overall for this build. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.